Hello and welcome to Love Your Job, Love Your Life podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today by Alex Naylor, who is the Chief People Officer at Gravitas Recruitment. Alex, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problem. So we're going to have a conversation today around personal development. And really the purpose of today's podcast is, I speak to lots of HR professionals, and HR professionals talk a lot about personal development and help their employees a lot with personal development. But what they're not very good at is taking control of their own personal development. And lots of people I speak to, it's kind of like it gets pushed and it gets pushed and it gets pushed and it gets pushed.
Yeah.
Alex, I'm delighted that we spoke the other week or the other month, as it was now, and we were talking about personal development, and this is something that's high on your priority list, and even on your LinkedIn profile, I noticed that you shared your 2025 objectives as well, which was very different. So let's start. Why is personal development so important to you?
Okay, it's a big question and there's lots of elements to it, but I've experienced through life, as a lot of people have, lots and lots of roadblocks, whether it's personal, whether it's professional, but I credit personal development for enabling me to be able to sort of navigate through those times. Sometimes I suppose those blocks were smashed into pieces and we moved forward. Other times it's like a sidestep. It's a wall, but it's not a never-ending wall.
Yeah.
And you're able to move forward. But lots and lots of times basically you just become stuck.
Yeah.
All right. So you can't break the wall, you can't sidestep the wall, you're stuck and you can't actually see the wood for the trees.
Yeah.
I've had a personal coach for probably about 6 years. And through the work that I've done with her, we've sort of rewired, shall we say, some of the deepest, darkest sort of parts of my brain, and learned to sort of understand that past is past. But most importantly, obviously, you're in control of the present and you're in control of the future within reason. So it's really then that foundation that's given me on understanding what it feels like to be stuck. And I don't like being stuck. It's not a nice feeling.
No.
And yeah, it's just not a nice feeling.
No, it's
at
not.
all.
And yeah, I mean, with Engage to Succeed, in the Engage to Succeed model, you use the word stuck. The lowest level of engagement, as I would call it on the model, is called stuck in a rut.
Yeah.
And that is where, you have just a low level of passion in what you're doing. You get completely and utterly stuck. You got fog over you in your brain. You don't know whether you're coming or going. And inadvertently, what happens is when you get to that space, your performance also starts dropping.
Yeah.
And once your performance drops and your passion drops, that's where you get really stuck, which is what you're talking about. And look, we all know the disengagement stats. 20% of employees are disengaged. 20% of employees are stuck in a rut, and it's not a nice place to be.
No.
So obviously you've got a coach, but you've had a coach for many years. But how do you approach kind of your personal development? Is it through kind of looking at your future path of where you want to go? Is it just with regards to your coach around areas of specialism or expertise? How do you approach it?
Very much about where I want to go. So I have it's not necessarily always a specific goal, but it's usually a vision of some sort, which is quite big, quite airy. I'm super ambitious, always have been, albeit have quite a lot of the time been stuck. But that need to get to the top of my career or to be the best that I can actually be, that's what sort of drives me forward. And when I So my goals that I've obviously put out on LinkedIn, which is quite punchy, but again, if you write them down and put them out to the world, then typically they're more likely to happen. But it's very much about, okay, what do I need to do to get there? I'm very process driven. I'm very detail orientated, but also I like the bigger picture. So I take the bigger picture and go, right, okay, how am I going to break that down into more manageable chunks, and then say, okay, fine, I'm going to go tackle that. So one of my goals from last year and one of my bigger visions is I need to develop my personal brand. I've been hidden, I suppose, behind what is the walls of Gravitas for a long time, partly, I think, intentionally. But I'm now going, okay, I want to come out and I want to show people who I am. But in order to do that, how am I going to do it? So my first step was, okay, I need to put myself out on LinkedIn some more. But then also, I actually probably need to learn about LinkedIn. So I joined a personal branding challenge where we learn about LinkedIn and all the algorithms and those things, but also had some cheerleaders along the way to help sort of take me on that journey. So yeah, it's very much just bigger picture and then break it down.
Yeah. And I do individual coaching and supporting people as well, Alex. And it's often the big stumbling block is actually figuring that part out.
Yeah.
Because so many people I've worked with, whether it be in organizations or individual, that they say, well, I've done vision boards, or I've done aspirations, or I've done career goals, or I've put something down on paper and it's never worked. And then you get under the skin of, well, why hasn't it worked? And often there's 101 reasons why it hasn't worked. But has that happened to you in the past, where you've kind of done something and then it hasn't come to fruition? And if so, why didn't it happen?
Definitely. I've got a really non-work related example, but I used to run a lot.
Yep.
I used to run half marathons, and I used to love it. And I had a goal, and I wanted to do a sub 4 hours marathon. And I broke it down as I would usually. Did my diary, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, do the cross training, all of the bits, and got to the race itself and just bottled it, absolutely bottled it. And it was horrific. And actually, I haven't ran since that point.
No.
Yeah, because it just sends me into this thing of like failure. But what I break it down to, and why I think I failed at it, was I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for the ego. It was what everyone will say when you go do a sub 4. And when I was training, I was going through the motions. I wasn't actually truly engaged with that activity. And that is, for me, the huge difference with whether you actually go and make something happen or not. It has to be that deep rooted purpose, motivation deep inside you that gets you to go, okay, I'm going to go do this.
Yeah. And that's often the piece that is missing. People either set their goals too high, they stretch themselves too far, or they genuinely, they're not passionate about what they're going to do. They're doing it because they think it's the right thing to do rather than what they actually truly want to do.
Exactly that.
Which is something that I come across an awful lot as well, which is people don't necessarily truly align where they are themselves with where they actually want to go. They're doing it because their mum, their dad, their partner, their friends, their colleagues, they all think that they should do it.
Exactly.
And you go on this journey and you end up failing. So
that to come back from that failure is hard. It's really, really hard, because then you question yourself. You question whether you're good enough, and all of that sort of self-doubt
Mm.
just creeps in, and then it's a bit of a spiral.
Yeah.
So that's the other reason why personal development is important to me, because I find if I'm coming back to that point of I'm in control of what's happening now,
Yeah.
I can control those inner thoughts, and I
Yeah.
can go, okay, but you are where you are and you're moving forward,
Yeah.
not staying stuck or moving backwards.
Yeah. So the big question is, are those running trainings ever going to come back out again?
So I've got a brand new pair that are in the cupboard, and I threaten every now and again to do it, especially when it's now starting to get light,
Yeah.
and people are out running, and obviously everyone's talking about the London Marathon, the Manchester Marathon, the countdown. I've started lifting weights.
Right.
That's where I'm at. But that's again a progression piece.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. I think it's 7 weeks, isn't it, to the London Marathon? So
Something like something like
that.
that. So yeah.
Yeah. Very good. So look, I touched on at the start that obviously HR people aren't necessarily great at developing themselves.
Yeah.
Where with your own personal development and your journey, you've reached the CPO role at Gravitas. Where is this personal development taking you, and how has it helped you to develop yourself, or develop within your role, or develop others?
So I moved away from sales 6 years ago, and sales as in recruitment. So I've never done anything else. But I felt that I sort of I get bored really easily. And I felt that I'd reached my ceiling, and there were people that worked for me that were better than me at sales. And when that starts to kick in, I'm like, okay, let's maybe expand our options. But also I didn't have the same passion for what I was doing. And that's the indication to me again that, okay, fine, something needs to give, something needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was very much about, what am I passionate about? Yep. What actually can I really sort of stick my hat on and go, that's where I'm going to go. That's what I'm going to go become a specialist at. That's what I'm going to go become known for.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where it sort of has taken me. And I suppose to where we are right now, there's so much more. I know I have so much more to offer and to learn within what I do. Mm-hmm. And I only need to go on LinkedIn every day and see just everything that's out there. And I think that's the thing. I kick myself for not getting more involved with LinkedIn and social media prior to this point.
Right.
But I was quite stuck in my ways and was very much, LinkedIn is never going to replace the old school networking, picking up the phone, doing that type of stuff. But now I realise,
remember those days of recruitment.
Yeah. Now I realise it's part of it. And actually, if you are going to go become the best of whatever it is you want to go become the best of, then you've got to have that platform that speaks to more people.
Yeah. And so the brand awareness piece, the personal brand awareness piece, because and it's whether it be personal brand awareness or whether it be anything that is stepping outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
A lot of what holds people back is exactly that. And I remember back to, I probably went through the same thing that you went through probably about 2 years ago, Alex, where I started thinking about leaving or resigning from Capita and handing my notice in and setting up Engage to Succeed. And I was like, oh my God, I am going to have to get very good at social media. And I hate it. What on earth am I going to say? And how on earth am I going to get my own personal brand across? And it's a very daunting thing. And for someone that's spent many years in recruitment, where I'm quite happy standing up in front of people, I'm quite happy talking to an audience of 500 people in a room. It doesn't bother me. But actually writing something and putting it on LinkedIn filled me with absolute dread. So whether it be personal branding, whether it be something else totally different, it could be standing on stage, it could be going to a networking event. There's loads of things that people have fears about and struggle to really kind of throw themselves in because they have this fear of failure. How do you kind of talk to yourself, overcome that? What steps do you take to help support your own development in pushing those boundaries? Because often that's what development is. It's about pushing boundaries and trying to take a step further in something you've not done before.
It absolutely is that. My brain's going. So take the how do you overcome fear. I don't think you do overcome fear. Fear's there, okay, but it's a feeling. It's not reality. So if you can sort of compartmentalize the fact that that's okay, I do feel that, and that's a natural thing, but it's actually not reality, because it's that flight or fight natural sort of emotion that we get. So it's compartmentalize it. And then the sort of question that I tend to ask is, what's going to happen if you don't do it?
Yep.
What's going to happen if you do it? And actually, if you can give a clear sort of connection to what is the benefit back to me for doing this action, what's the worst that can happen? Usually keep it factual, write it down, and you'll see that there's nothing actually to be scared of, because again, that fear is just a feeling.
Yeah. And it's right. The nerves come, and then as soon as you do something, you go, oh, actually, it wasn't quite as bad as I thought it would be.
I went to confidence. I went to a conference event a couple of weeks ago, and there was a talk about, it's called the AMCC, and it's a part of your brain that basically you can, I'm trying to think how you can train it to something that's a ceiling for you. If you continue to do that thing that makes you feel uncomfortable, your brain then gets used to the fact that it's doing it and it feels uncomfortable, but then you get used to it. So what becomes a ceiling, or what was a ceiling, actually then starts to become basically the floor, and you can overcome things. But it's about keeping doing those things. And for me, exactly like you've described, posting something out on LinkedIn send me into a tailspin, if we say 6 months ago. And I'm like, yeah, but what are people going to think? They're going to judge me. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And now I'm just post it.
Yeah.
And actually, the feeling that I have now is I still get a little bit the fear.
Yeah.
But what's the worst that can happen?
You can delete it if you really don't like it.
Exactly. But also it's just going to get lost in the ether anyway. So it's not like you're coming face to face with a dinosaur that's about to chop your head off type situation. That's fear.
Yeah.
What we experience day to day in the professional commercial world is certainly within our commercial world. It's not life or death.
No, it's not. So one of the things that also I often come across, and it'll be interesting to get your views on this, Alex, is, and I'm kind of going back a little bit when I was in the corporate world and I was a leader, and I had that conversation with somebody that would come up and say, James, I want I want your job, or I want to be promoted, or I want a manager. And I'd sit there and go, no, you don't. Honestly, it's really not that. It's really not that great. I'm joking. I loved my job. Um, but one of the things that often happens, Alex, is that people, you talk to people about development, you talk to people about development plans, you talk about career aspirations, whatever it is you want to talk about. You talk about this with people, and they get super excited about it, because they tend to, because you're talking about kind of a career opportunity or whatever it might be. And then you send them off and they go off. And then 4 weeks later or 2 weeks later or whenever it is, you kind of go, oh, I'm really excited because I'm going to talk to so-and-so about what they've been up to over their last few weeks around their development. And then you sit down and they go, so what have you been up to? And they go, well, I haven't had time, or something's come up, or, I got it, and I'll talk recruitment. I picked up 10 jobs and I needed to fill them. So what happens is people often deprioritize this stuff, or they something else comes along that they believe is more important. How do you manage that yourself, or if you're then coaching people at Gravitas around their personal development, how are you helping them to realize the importance of it, Alex? Because you put a lot of importance on it, clearly. So how do you manage it for yourself, or how do you support others to manage it?
So I think, again, it probably starts with why. And really getting to the root of why it is that this step is important. Because if you can really get to that deep, dark, rooted driver, you just pull that back out every time and go, hold on a minute, you said that this was important for these reasons, and this was what you were going to get off the back of it if you did those things. And sometimes, again, that's just the mind. It's just how the mind works. It's just we've just got to keep reiterating, okay, but you told me this was important. This was what you wanted. This is what we're going to do. The second thing is coming back down to the point of breaking it down. Okay. Too often people go, I want to achieve X, but it's not broken down into what is manageable, realistic actions that person can take. So that's the second bit. The third bit is you have to, when I say prioritize it, you have to confirm when you're going to do it, how long you're going to spend on it, and when there's going to be a review on it. So for me, and for most individuals in Gravitas, diary is important. So if it's in the diary, it will happen. Certainly in my world. If it's not in my diary, it's not going to happen. So the only person that I have to blame if something doesn't move forward is me. So it comes back again to the absolute root of why you want to do it. And that's usually what stops people, is because that isn't strong enough. And that's the thing. If the desire to change is there, brilliant. But if what you're trying to change to or develop to is desirable, but actually it's not as desirable, to get there is too painful. So the bit at the end is not as desirable as the pain that you're going to have to go through in order to get there, then it's never going to happen.
And and that can often be the case, right? That people, and especially when I think back to the corporate world, and when people talk about development, or they ask that question of where do you want to go, or what's the next role for you, or whatever it is, people often believe that they have to say, I want to be a manager, I want to be a director, I want to be a head of, I want to do this, I want to do that. Whereas actually, when if you took a step back and said, actually, you don't have to do that.
No.
If you just want to be, and in your world of Gravitas, if you just want to be a really great recruiter, just tell me you want to be a really great recruiter, because I'll give you everything I can to make sure that you become the best recruiter in the world.
Exactly that.
Or if it's actually, I love what I do. I'm great at what I do. I hit my targets every single month, but I just want to work from 9 to 5:30. And
Mm-hmm.
I know you offer flexible working, and I know you offer this, and I know you offer that, but actually, I just want 9 to 5:30 because that suits my lifestyle.
Yeah,
Um, it's also really important to understand that element of it as well, right? That says it's not all about wanting to be the CEO all the time. It's actually about truly being understanding and believing what sits here and what do I truly want to do, and then expressing
exactly.
that in a way that makes sure that the organization or the individual is driving towards that.
Which comes back down to purpose. Yeah,
Yeah,
when we're talking about what's deep rooted in here, most organizations have a purpose, have a vision. I think the world is moving since sort of COVID, the world has definitely shifted quite heavily on its axis. And it's now about, okay, but what's important to the individual? So
yeah,
it's about making sure that that individual's purpose somehow sort of feeds into what is the overriding sort of organizational purpose, or they understand what they're doing, how that impacts the
yeah,
business or how that integrates into the business so the business can go do what they want to do. And I think sometimes there is a disconnect with that. And that's sometimes I think where again people will probably go, actually, do you know what? I don't feel I can progress in
hmm,
this organization
yeah,
because I don't see that there's that opportunity. And that may be that that is the case,
yeah,
but it also might not be. So it's important that the individual sort of always sits down with their manager and has that sort of free conversation, which don't get me wrong, needs to be in a safe space and doesn't
yeah, yeah,
always necessarily happen. But it works both ways.
yeah,
Sometimes what someone wants doesn't actually fit within the organization. That's okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
because we should be, for the most part, thinking about ourselves and what we need to do in order to move ourselves forward. And
hmm,
sometimes that might be that it is a different organization.
yeah, yeah. And people outgrow organizations. People
Of course they
outgrow
do.
roles. People
Yeah.
outgrow where they are. People's personal values, motivators change over
Yeah.
time depending on where they are in their life. And
Certainly do.
if their values or their purpose or their motivations don't fit with the company or the job,
Yeah.
then naturally there's going to be a disconnect. And where your personal values and motivators don't match up to the culture of an organization, you're never going to be successful.
No.
You'll take it to a certain level, but eventually you'll get frustrated and you'll end up again, as we started, being stuck because
Yeah.
it's nothing is aligning. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting one, and it can become quite an interesting debate as well of actually what's the cost of having people in an organization that don't really want to be there. We know what that cost is. It's a
Yeah.
loss of productivity. It's
Yeah.
roller coasters. It's stuck in rut, and therefore the impact from the organization is a negative one from a financial productivity perspective. So
Very much so. Very much so.
so look, Alex, you've invested a lot in yourself over the years, and we've kind of talked a lot about lots of different. We've gone off in slightly different tangents, but kind of to kind of bring this to a close and to wrap this up. What would you say are the most important elements of personal development or the lessons that you've learned over the years that you could share with people that are listening to this?
Um, Number one, you can only ever achieve what you believe you can achieve. So scare yourself. Um, it's a lesson that I've learned probably more recently over the course of the last maybe 12 to 18 months. Um, but I think it's a really important one. I think it's okay to be scared.
Yeah,
um, I've actually written an article, not an article, I've written a post today that's actually about low level anxiety versus sort of intuition, and just that, which is right. I think if you don't have that sort of low level anxiety going on, you probably are in a situation where you're maybe not stretching yourself, or you are stretching yourself, and actually just listen to that. But yeah, if I'm not feeling uncomfortable, I'm not pushing myself.
Yeah. Okay.
And as an ambitious person, that's important.
Yeah.
And I think
Become comfortable feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, third thing, you've got to commit to do the work.
Yeah.
So you have to make sacrifices, whether that be on your personal time, whether that be monetary. Yeah, it's not going to just get given to you. You have to put the effort in, and you can't just wing it.
No. It's that the I love that last one, because it's something that I talk about an awful lot. And go back to the running piece. You know, you can download the app that's couched to 5K, but if you don't actually go out and run, or even 3 times a week and do what Steve Cram tells you to do, you won't be able to run 5K.
No, exactly.
So yeah, it's very much about you have to do it. So look, Alex, this has been insightful. As we said beforehand, we could probably talk about this for hours, and before we know it, we could be sitting on here for an hour. But I think there's some really valuable lessons there, and there's lots of things that I talk about with people that I work with as well, which is around kind of set out a plan, make sure that you are really passionate about where you're going, and if you don't buy into it, it will never happen. And to break it down is key. You know, breaking it down into chunks that show progress is really important. And that's something that I always do as well when I'm training for something, or I'm running or whatever. I always break it down and give myself kind of goals of X time to achieve certain things by. So I'm sure that there's lots of things that we could talk about again in more detail, Alex. But it's been great having you on the podcast. I hope people have found this really interesting. And before I close, any final words or remarks that you want to share? Wisdom.
What is it that Nike said? Just go for it. Do it. Just do it.
JFDI?
JFDI. Yeah. I'm not allowed to say that anymore, are we? But yeah.
I've just said it. So sorry if you're not.
No, it's absolutely JFDI. Just go do it. What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. Throw yourself in. Alex, it's been a delight. Thank you for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you.
I guess if anyone, I will put your LinkedIn bio in the comments below. So if anyone wants to see what Alex has got planned for 2025, click on her bio. And if you'd like to talk to her further, then I'm sure connect, and she'll be happy to pick up a conversation. But Alex, thank you for joining me. It's been
James.
Great fun, and hope everybody has enjoyed it and taken something away from it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.